All right, awesome, guys, and thank you again for joining us today for some topology, topology tune-up, um, with me, SpaceGlitterUnicorn, and let's get to it. So today, the skills matrix alignment is art, assets, design, and creation of static meshes for use as in-world world environments, items, props, wearables, characters. And today we're going to be diving into a little bit of AI and getting that really nice AI based model. And then we're gonna do some retopologizing. So this is gonna be super cool because you could do so much with retopology. You could basically make an AI model your own. Today's mentor office hours important info. This session is recorded. I usually say mute yourself, but I am very open to having conversation today. Raise your hand. There is a raise hand feature. Honestly, like for me, just sound off in the chat. I do check the chat. um Keep the questions concise. If you do have a question, share in the chat, share context beforehand, use that chat, party it up. Fill out the survey at the end, please. Oh, please. That would be super duper helpful. So rewiring your creative process, Gen AI mindset. Okay, so the traditional development teaches us to be in complete control. Gen AI development requires a different approach. Instead of just learning tools, we need to develop a new mindset, embrace uncertainty rather than demanding perfection, guide rather than command these systems, and think like a director, not just an engineer. The key isn't just what tools you use, but how you approach them. And the 5 P's of Gen AI mindset. I'm not going to read through all of these. Just know it's partnership, patience, purpose-driven, proof checking, and playfulness. Really just have fun with AI and see where you can push it, like how far you can push it. All right. So generating your AI asset. So today we're going to theoretically generate a very simple AI asset so that we can go through retopologizing it. And I have two tools that I usually use. Both are paid, but you could also use kind of like the tools that Blender uses. But I'd like to introduce you guys to some really cool tools that really streamline your retopology and get to understanding it a little better. Let's take that AI generated asset and bring it into Blender, and let's take a look at the topology. Um, and afterwards, we're going to go straight to retopologizing and UVing our asset. What is retopology? It's a process in 3D modeling where new polygonal mesh is created on top of an existing one, often to optimize the model for animation, deformation, or UV unwrapping. The goal is to maintain the shape while improving the topology for better performance and aesthetics. All right, the levels for success. Documentation. We do have documentation. That's for like anything from mesh imports, our materials and stuff. Practice, please practice. If you really want this, you should practice at least like 10 to 20 minutes a day or more if you're really, really into it. The Gen AI mindset, don't forget those 5 Ps. And use the Discord, use the forums, and ask for help. There is a really good community that is ready to help you on your journey, and your mentors as well. All right, so let's get to it. So I'm going to go into Horizon Worlds. Alrighty. So sound off in the chat. I want to think of something super simple to retopologize. So tell me, what do you think? Should I do a wall? Should I do an arch? Should I do this apple? Let me know in the chat. Let's see. Stone arch. A banana. I'll do a banana. I'll do an arch and a banana. How about that? Reminds me of that chicken banana. Alrighty. All right, I'm gonna take that model because this one's pretty solid. And I'm going to prompt that yellow banana. The banana. All right, stone, brick, arch. Let's see what it gives me. Why did the yellow banana stop generating? Interesting. It's generating. Okay. I was going to say stone, brick, arch. Generate that. I'd like to stop that one, but I think it understood what I said a little bit. Move this apple out of the way. Thank you, World Cubes. Keeping me on point here. Well, this is nice. This one's nice too. I don't know, the square one or the round one. Keeping it simple. Should I do the round one? Less square. Okay. I'm gonna texture that one then. Two square, one round. Okay, okay. Ooh, that's a rather nice banana. This does take some time. Ooh. Okie dokie. I should make a whole fruit basket. Yeah, the texturing's a bit strange, but it'll do. That'll do, donkey. All right. Just waiting on this arch. While I wait on that, I'm going to go ahead and save out this model banana. All right. Oh, this is nice. All right. Saving that model out. This model in particular would be nice to bring into Substance Painter and baking the high poly to low poly. So if we do have time, I'll definitely do that. If anybody is interested in seeing that, it's super fun to do. Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. Downloading. Alrighty. So I'm gonna label this arch. Save. Okie dokie, my friends. All right, let's get to Blender, shall we? Go ahead and minimize. You know what? Since I've been having computer issues, I'm gonna just close out the desktop editor for now, just to be on the safe side. Let's, come on, do the thing. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go ahead and open up Blender. And let's get down to business. I don't want to update that. Yeah, I have the Blender kit open, but we're not using that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete everything here. I think my Horizon EXE is still running in Task Manager. Interesting. I'm gonna have to take a look at all that. I mean, even though I am starting fresh here, um, Yeah, I'll take a look. Okay, so now let's talk about this retopology, right? Let's first take a look at the banana. So I'm going to click and drag this into the scene. Easy peasy. I'm going to zoom in on it by pressing the period key on my number pad. And here we are. I also usually like to work above the grid. So I'm going to go ahead and press G and Z to just bring my item here. And there we have a nice banana. Let's take a look at the topology. So I'm going to go ahead in the overlays, the viewport overlays, and I usually like to turn on this wireframe um, overlay just to take a look at, what we have on top of, our texture. And as you can see, this topology is, kind of all over the place, right? It's a mess. However, it is still it is still usable. Normally, when people have a mesh like this, they would go to the modifiers and they would go to decimate. And as we can look here, we're gonna basically take this ratio down and we can absolutely totally decimate this guy. It still looks pretty decent. However, it's still kind of, you know, kind of wonky. Like I'm not a big fan of this type of topology. However, you're not animating this mesh, like you're not doing any deformation, so this is just fine, right? And of course, the lower you go, you have to take account the texture. And as you can see, the texture is now kind of all over the place, you know? I do have a tutorial to send you guys for transferring the texture from one mesh to another, uh, only because I know I might not have enough time to cover that, and that's just fine. We're going to just focus on how to retopologize our item. So I'm going to go ahead and just click out of that. And let's talk about the tools that we have available to us. First off, you can totally, hold on a second. Set origin to geometry. Okay, that's totally in the center. That's fine. Okay, so first off, one trick that we can do is we can totally just create a geometry. So I'm going to do Shift A, create the mesh plane, and we could take that plane and we could start doing some snapping to face. So for example, if I were to take this and if I were to align the rotation to target, I can absolutely just take that. And as you can see, I could start doing some retopology as such. This is great and all. However, it's not very efficient. For example, if I were to, press tab and I can absolutely extrude, this is still useful. However, it is not desirable. You can't really see what you're doing, if I just kind of press extrude. But this is really good on the fly. You could still kind of work with that. And let me just, so you can see it better. As you can see, you could totally retopologize this way. I'm going to press extrude, extrude, whoop, G, so it just kind of like snaps the surface, extrude, extrude, and like I'm being super duper loose with this, but I wouldn't ignore this as a solution for your retopology. However, as you can see, it's just kind of strange. Another thing is you have your add-ons, which are really helpful, useful. One add-on I do love to use, which I've been swearing by, especially for quick geometry like this, is called Quad Remesh. And Quad Remesh is a paid tool. However, it is a very useful tool. And I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for Quad Remesh. And really, if you want something super simple, but you have less control over your retopology, this is your way to go. For example, for an item like this banana, I would go with a possible 80 quad count and check out the geometry once I click on Remesh. There you go. Now you have a retopologized banana. And that was super duper simple, right? Um, the thing about having a tool like this and having topology like this is now you can give yourself some really good UVs. So for example, I'm going to just turn this off. I'm going to go to here to the original mesh. Whoops. I'm going to go to the original mesh. And I'm going to go to the UV editing so we could see what the mesh looks like. Actually, this is not too bad, but sometimes when you're sometimes when you're doing your UVing, you kind of want your UVs to be a little more simplistic. And for this banana, I possibly would want this banana to be one UV island rather than having multiple islands, right? So let's get back to our retopologized banana, right? So let's talk about this. So how I would go about UV unwrapping this, and like I said, I would definitely keep this all on one UV. So for example, one thing to note is I do see this like really convenient seam right up top here. Although I would go for a side that is less visible. So possibly this line here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do Alt and select this line. As you can see, my topology was computer generated rather than it being um, done by hand, you get this kind of like spiraling on the topology, which is fine. This is usable. But if you are going to get in further with like animations and stuff and like truly retopologizing, this kind of geometry is not going to work with you, you know? But for static meshes such as this is just fine. Alrighty, so what I would like to do is I would like to take this and I'm going to do a control and then click. No, control click just along this side. So possibly the seam would go off to the side there. Then I'll open up this guy, although kind of want to go further a bit so that it opens up further, making sure there is a little lip so that the UV island is still attached. And let's see how this opens up. There we are. Awesome. So I'm going to do right click. I'm going to mark that seam. Perfect. And let's see how this unwraps. I want to take this. There we are. Also, if you don't see any UVs on the side, you can just go ahead and project from view. Why aren't you showing? There we are. Oof, my goodness. Okay, now we have our banana UVs ready to be unwrapped. I'm going to go ahead and right click unwrap, and there you go. That is our banana. Now, it doesn't look banana shaped, but don't worry, because you could do so much with one UV island like that. And the reason why the reason why we want minimal islands is it's truly optimal for the Horizon engine or any game engine to process these islands rather than having one object with like so many islands. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that where an item has like multiple like little faces and stuff like that. That is not generally good for a gaming engine. So having your topology like this as best as you can, because there are times where you won't be able to do that and you will have to have multiple pieces. So definitely keep that in mind too. Like don't drive yourself too crazy. Just do the best you can. Yeah, I mean, I am not a big fan of smart UVing because of that reason. So let's take a look at the smart UVing. So I'm going to go ahead and do another. Oh, don't I have it selected? Okay. Let's just do another banana to see. Alrighty. So what am I doing? Okay. So take this out of the way. Let's see what happens when we do a smart UV. So I'm going to go ahead to the UV editing and UV, smart UV project, unwrap. And as you can see, this is not truly ideal, you know? It's just not that great, you know? It looks like it kept the UVs though, which is really interesting. Hold on a second. I have a hunch. No, yeah. It did not. But that's just fine. As you can see, I thought the this tool, the quad remesher, kept the UVs where they should have, but it didn't. But that is good to know as well. Okie doke. So this is bad. Well, this is not great. Um, so you have that compared to, whoops, this topology, not that topology. Actually, there we are. That compared to you guys get what I'm saying. I'm like confusing myself now. Okay. So now let's just throw this in the garbage. Come back to this. So that is one way to do our smart UVs try to make flat islands rather than fewer islands. Yes, that's correct. Um, the problem with the smart UVing though is it's computer generated, you know. It's not going to know what you want all the time, you know. um I am a control freak when it comes to my topology, so it's like it absolutely has to be um it has to be for me it has to be like I have to have total control over which direction my edge loops go and stuff like that, so I know I'm pre-planning my UVs, pre-planning how my items are textured, stuff like that. So let's talk about how we take an AI object and transfer the texture over to a retopologized object. And yeah, this will be super helpful and super simple I hope this gets you excited because this is really, truly a nice treat. So let's get started. Alrighty, so now that we have our banana already retopologized and already UV unwrapped, let's get to transferring um, that image over, and I'll show you exactly how this is like super exciting. So I'm here in the main layout tab where I normally like to just do everything. I have my retopologized item here, and then I have my AI item. Move that out of the way so you guys can see the comparison. And of course, the vert count between the two is just super drastic. It's almost 2K vertices here, and then you have the vert count down to 448, which gives you a lot of room to add more items to your Horizon world. So, okay, so let's get to it. So I'm going to Control Z out of this to get this banana back into place. Now what I would like to do is with my new retopologized item, I'd like to basically make a copy of it. So I'm going to do Shift D and just copy that over. Um, this one, I will call this cage, and I'll tell you why in a second. All right, I'm going to just call this cage banana, right? This one would be our source, which is our AI source. And actually, I'm going to source AI. So we visibly know what we're looking at. If I were to /, that is what I have selected. The retopologized item, which is, whoops, which is this item here. I'm going to rename that to destination. And I'll tell you why these are like super important. I'm going to rename this destination. Okay, cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to, actually I'm going to delete that. What we're going to do is we're going to want to take our image from the source, which is this guy here, and transfer that image to our newly retopologized item, newly UV'd. The thing is that if I were to grab the source, and let's take a look at the UVs on the source so you guys see the comparison. I'm going to go to here, UV editor. This is just for me. And as you can see, our banana is in multiple places. And generally, what we'd like to do is we'd like to figure out a cleaner source for our image. And see, as you can see, I have my UV island all in one. This is more efficient for game development. So, yeah, this is ideal and much more clean. So let's get to it. So I'm gonna just I'm going to leave that there for now. What we'd like to do is first off, go to our source item. Whoops. Our source item, in order for the baking process to work, we're going to need to make a new material. And I am skipping steps. I'm sorry, but that's okay. I'm getting back into the swing of things here. First off, our destination banana is going to need its own material, right? And that's going to be the material you're going to bake onto. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to material, and I'm going to add new. And I'm just going to name this BANA. All right, banana. All right, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the surface from principled BSDF to scrolling up to diffuse BSDF. And this is really important for the baking process. So definitely take note of that. I went and I created a new material, renamed the surface from principal to diffuse. Now, what I usually like to do is I always like to open up a new window here and just work in the same place. It's more efficient for me. What I'm going to do is with my new destination banana selected in the shaders panel, what I'd like to do is I'd like to click off into space first so we're not selected to anything. Right click and I'm going to add texture, image texture. Alrighty, and now I'm going to press new and I'm going to call this B1 just because. And I'm going to leave the resolution at 1024. Actually, we could get away with like if this banana is like a regular size banana, super small, we don't need it to be such a beefy resolution, but that's okay. We're going to just leave it default for now. I'm going to press new image. And now we have our new image created. Now what I'm going to do, this is going to be super cool, super important for our process here. I'm going to connect this color node to the color portion of the diffuse BSDF. Now with this still selected, I'm going to do Control C to copy that. And now what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to the source AI, click off into space and do Control V and paste this same texture into this shader area. And this is really important for the baking process. You're going to need both to have the same texture within for it to work, because what we're doing is we're transferring from this image and we're transferring it to here and have it be its own image. So this is really important. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, what I'd like to do is go to the cage. The cage is really important for containing the texture itself. Normally, other creators do not need to use the cage, but it's important to know how to use it regardless. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press tab and I'm going to go to vert select mode. Now this is really important. I'm going to do Alt and then S and just scale this up just a bit. Hold on a second. There we are. So now we've kind of inflated our cage around it. Now it doesn't have to be super thick. Like for example, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be just so. And another thing to note is when you make your cage, do not manipulate any of the geometry because the baking process will give you an error. So that's just a heads up. So now what we're going to do, now that we're happy and satisfied with our cage, now that we're happy and satisfied with our source AI destination banana, this is really important, an important step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on source on my scene collection, and then I'm going to control click the destination banana. You do not need to click on anything here, right? And when you're in the scene, do not click off of anything. Matter of fact, just don't touch it. Let's get to the renders panel. And if you have it on Eevee, turn it to cycles. And then we're going to scroll down to bake and make sure that the bake type is set to diffuse. And it's going to look like this. You're going to turn off direct and indirect light. And you're going to have to make sure that you're going to select selected to active. Then you're going to click on cage. And then you're going to take this eyedropper and copy over this object from the scene collection. And once it says cage banana, now what we're going to do is press bake. And let's see how that goes. Alrighty. So it looks like it worked. So let's turn off the AI and turn off the cage banana. And there you go. Now you have your texture transferred from your AI object to your newly retopologized object. And as you can see, you don't really truly see a difference other than some clean geometry. So let me turn off this wireframe so you can see it. Boom. Which banana is which? That's the magic of baking and 3D modeling. Okay, so let's get to our next item. We're gonna go ahead and do this arch. So this arch is, it's okay, but let's say we want total control of this item here. And honestly, part of me would totally just kind of like start from scratch. So for example, it's such a simple item. I would totally just take one side and just mirror it. So for example, what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and orthographic view really quick and make sure that I do shift right click to move this cursor. Now the cursor is on top. And the reason why I like to use the cursor is because, no, it's not that scary, is because I would like for my geometry to show up right there up top. So I'm going to do Shift A, Mesh, Plane. All right. So now what we can do is I'm going to scale by Y. Perfect. Alrighty. And I'm going to choose a side. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but I can visibly see that this model is not totally symmetrical. But that's just my trained eye, but it's definitely not close, but not that symmetrical. And you could tell by the details in here and stuff like that, and which is absolutely fine. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And let's start building this out. For example, I would like to see like the absolute midway of this geometry. So I'm going to do Control R. Actually, no, I'm going to tab to edit mode first. Silly me. And I'm going to turn off that. I am going to do Control R so I can just cut right in half. And the reason I'm doing that is because I am totally going to do mirroring, and I'm going to choose this side to do the retopology. I'm going to go ahead and go to face select mode and delete this side. Perfect. Now I'm going to go tab, go to add modifier on the object mode, and do the mirroring. Now we are talking. So we can now go ahead and do some retopology just from scratch, right? So I'm going to go ahead, press tab, go to my edge select mode. And it's a little hard to see. Actually, let me do us all a favor here. Turn off that wireframe. Perfect. So that the only thing visible is the wireframe of the geometry I'm using. I have my edge selected, of course, because it's a modifier, it's not going to select all the way through. That's just a little note because that can get confusing sometimes. And I can start tracing my geometry the way I want to. So I'm going to go ahead and press E to extrude by the Z axis. So I press E and then Z. And basically I'm going to go ahead and just kind of like nudge that down. Nice. Now what I can do, since this is like a super simple shape, I'm going to do Alt E and whoop. Oh yeah, that's right. That's fine. I'm going to do E and then I'm going to press S to kind of like scale that in. As you can see, these guys are a little wonky and I can straighten those out by selecting them. And because this is the X axis, I can just do scale X 0 to straighten that out. And I could totally do a little bit of snapping edge and just G X. Oops. Actually, I could also do by the grid. My bad. It's better that way because it's mirrored. I'm going to do GX and just snap to the center there, I think. Just weld it later. Not a big deal. Anyways, I'm trying not to get too caught up on those details. Alrighty. So now what I can do is I can start tracing out the rest of my topology. And I know this arch is a little scary, but we can figure out which direction we're going to go with creating that archway. So I'm going to do E. Whoops. Make sure you turn off snapping. Sweet. All right, nice. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to pre-plan out the rest of this stuff. And don't worry about like the vertices not like this is a loose vertice. What we can do is we can merge by distance. So I'm going to go E and then Z and start tracing this guy out. I would stop there because we're going to have to kind of like cut this out a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and plan out this side too. So I'm going to do Control R, E, Z, and such. Don't worry about this side because we could also cut this in half and have it mirror that side as well, which is super nice, super easy. And yeah, let's get to it. Don't worry about the middle here. We could sew that up. Okay. Let's see. We can plan out this edge there. And turn off X-ray mode a little bit to see what we're doing. The best thing to do is to practice topology and your quads and stuff like that is really helpful. This is going to need an edge loop as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do some knife tool action. I'm going to press K and I'm probably, come on. What am I doing? K knife tool, and then I'm going to bring that Y. So I'm going to just cut right in half there. Come on. Enter. Right. Like I said, don't worry about the verts because we are going to weld them afterwards. And let's talk about this arch here. So for example, what we can do is absolutely build out the arch in a separate mesh, and that would keep the mesh a little more simple. Um, for example, um, if I were to want to cut out that arch into this geometry, it's going to make this geometry a little expensive, right? Like definitely trust this process because it is certainly nice to have the option to kind of like have multiple pieces in one mesh. Doesn't have to be like the mesh is totally welded. However, like if I were to try to cut this out of, like, how do I say? If I were to try to make this archway, like for example, if I were to do the knife tool, whoops, and like do kind of like a star pattern, for instance, you will start to get kind of like a skewing of like the geometry lights. So what I will do for this one is I'll give you another example. I'm going to go ahead and do Shift A, mesh plane, scale this down a bit, rotate Y 90 degrees. And this will probably be backwards, but you'll get what I'm doing in a second. GZ, and I'm being super duper rough with it because I could spend hours redoing this topology. So please don't mind me. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and scale this by the y-axis just to kind of like get a general idea of the initial shape here. Actually, I'm gonna do the inside. Scale it by y. Turn off this X-ray mode. G, X, right there. Alrighty. So let's talk about this arch here. GZ. For example, this is where that snapping tool comes in. I'm going to do face, but don't align by target because I had already turned it. So I'm going to go ahead and press E to extrude by the Z axis and just kind of like keep tracing it up. I am going to cut it in half, so I can be super loose with it. And as you can see now, I am tracing this archway, right? And it's going to be its own geometry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both these sides here. And actually, no, I'll just select one side. I'm also problem solving here because I didn't expect to do the arch today, but that's just fine. I'm going to extrude by Y, and I'm going to extrude out of there. And there is a reason why I did it that way, GY. Alrighty. So now what I could do is I could take this row of faces and Alt E, extrude along normals. And as you can see, the magic happens. And I can nudge, nudge. GY. Okay. You don't have to merge them together. It really depends. Oh, all the magic. Yes. It really depends. Like for example, because what we're doing is we're using the AI topology as a template, you know? Okie doke. So I'm gonna go ahead and extrude by the Y. And let's see how we're gonna do this. One arch could be multiple objects because, like I said, if we were to cut into this geometry, it's gonna make it so expensive, and you'll see why in a second. So hold on. G, then X. I go ahead and nudge all of these guys. GZ. Oops. And that I can fix. You will see why. Where are my tools? Okay, so here, what I'm doing now is I am theoretically just kind of like nudging into place, being very, very rough with it. Oops. Okay. Nope. All right. A little more nudge, nudge. A little something, something. All right. So actually, I kind of want to. All right, cool. Alrighty. And now let's finish this part off. And extrude by. All right, cool. Alrighty, then. Yeah. Sweet. All right. So what I would like to do with our new geometry, let's take a look at it. Let's clean this up. So for example, I am in object mode. I'm going to turn off this mirror modifier. And let's fix the geometry here. So I'm going to do Control R. Delete all these faces. Don't freak out. Yeah. Delete this half. Actually, yeah. I believe that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Make sure that is halved. Cool. Let's take a look at this guy here. So we could totally just bring this, and of course this side as well. G and Z, just this little nudge. Is that uneven here? What's going on? Okay. It's fine. Alrighty. G. Oops. Nudge that over a little bit. I can straighten this out. It's scale X 0. That's better. Okay. That was driving me nuts. GX. Just nudge that in there. See if it crashes through. Totally does. We're just doing some reconstruction. Here we are. Okay. And once more, I'd like to kind of like straighten this guy out. Deleting this. And scale by X 0. So that's nice and straight. I would like for this to reach 2. All right, cool. Scale by X 0. So that's nice and straight. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of like have that reach this guy here. So I'm going to do GX. Boom, we're snapping. And clean up the topology down here. Whoops. My goodness. Alrighty. I'd like for this to reach the bottom here. So I'm going to do, I have snapping on. Nice, GZ. Snap to that bottom. So we're nice and straight. I'm going to join these guys. I'm going to make sure. Yeah, this is not centered. Okay. Having your geometry centered to the grid is like it's such a lifesaver. So definitely be mindful of that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to orthographic view by pressing 3. Going to go ahead and spin that. And I'm going to snap to grid, GX, and snap that to the grid. I also, actually, I think that's good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the mirror modifier, mirror. All right, cool. And then I'm going to mirror by the y-axis. Now I have an archway. Oh, not back face culling. What am I doing? Silly goose. Now we have a nice archway and it's ready to be baked from high poly to low poly. Like you could totally do that with this. Or you could make your own high poly mesh. Some of the polys are back to front. What do you mean? What do you mean? Are you talking about my face orientation? Ew. Oh, okay. Let me go ahead and Alt N. Nope. Recalculate outside. There you go. Very cool. Alrighty. So yeah, here is a brand new fresh piece of mesh that you've traced out of, and underneath they are flipped. What do you mean? What do you mean? You can unmute yourself if you like. Okay, so yeah, we could totally do the high poly to low poly. No. Okay, so if I were to, let's say, want to attach this mesh to that mesh, first off, I'd like to apply this guy, right? And let's say I want to, whatchamacallit? If I wanted to kind of like measure what this topology is, I can go to the overlay statistics. And right now this is at 239 verts for one archway, which is great. Like you could totally fill a whole world with these archways and make it like super heavenly and pretty, right? But let's say I wanted to take this and like I really wanted the mesh to be totally molded together. Then you would have to cut into this geometry and like knife tool it and just cut. And then you would have to make sure that your polys are good rather than starred. So if you had like items that are like totally pulled out, which these are called poles, sometimes what happens is the vertices kind of like make this really weird skewing of the lighting in horizon. So honestly, I would stick to something like this, a little more simplified. For verts, yes. So basically, you're talking about quads. It's nice to build with quads for sure. Um, I would say like stick to quads for your base meshes, and if you like to import with tries and stuff, definitely keep a quad version at hand so that if anything, if you need to go ahead and modify your builds, you can just absolutely go back and modify. Um, um, because if I were to go ahead and take this and do like, I don't know, um, what is it? I think it's triangulate, right? And if I wanted to go back and like, I don't know, fix UVs and stuff, fixing the UVs with tries is just kind of it's not fun, you know? But what we want is kind of like a more streamlined way to uh a streamlined way to do your UVs. So for example, I'm going to take this guy and we're going to go ahead and UV edit this. Thank you. Um, so let's see how I'm going to UV this. For example, I can see how it unwraps first. I think the archway would be pretty fine. Um, let me see what I get here. Yeah, I believe this might be the archway. This right here is my geometry, which I can see why it split. It's because I left this seam open, which is fine. I'm going to go back and kind of like merge by distance. And I've already eliminated those verts that, there you go. And now this is not this is not preferable. What I can do is now cut into that geometry and start marking seams. Like for example, I would totally take that apart and kind of like do the edges so that it opens up like a little bit of a like a a little flatter. Um, actually, I would do the corners too. Not gonna lie, so that it has like little tabs, and you'll see what I mean. Because UV unwrapping is really important. All right, cool. Nope, not mark sharp. Hello, mark seam. Okay, cool. Red line, good. The blue line is good too. But I prefer uh not to use that. I'd rather just bevel. All right, cool. Right click, mark seam. All right, sweet. Now, see what that looks like. Unwrap. Now this is a little more neat. This guy here, as you can see, that's the top there, and I opened it up so that it comes out nice and flat. So definitely practice your UV unwrapping because this is like the best part. And you could go as far as like separating all these like extra guys here. But we don't need to. Honestly, like less is more when it comes to UVs. So the more simplistic you make it, the better. Let's see what uh this looks like with the other mesh. Where are you? Did I delete it? Am I bugging? Where did the banana go is my question. Interesting. Hmm. Anyways, see, I have been having issues with my PC. Okay, that's fine. Might be a me issue anyways. Um, weird. Huh. The banana ran away, and it's fine. I get it. I'm gonna go ahead and just bring this mesh back in. G, Z. Let's just bring this in, kind of like match it up a bit so that we can, I don't know, play around with the baking. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be fine. I'm going to do scale just a little bit, scale Z. Oh my goodness, I keep forgetting to turn off snapping. Scale Z, GZ, just a little bit. Because I've moved it, yeah, this is probably going to be crazy town. Scale X. All right, cool. This is just fine. Now let's see what happens when we do the high poly to low poly. So first I'm going to export this guy. I'm going to do export FBX. Excuse my junk drawer. I'm going to do Arch LP for low poly, selected object, mesh, all that fun stuff. I'm going to do, all right, cool. File, export, FBX, and I'm going to do Arch HP for high poly. Export. All right, cool. Now let's open up Substance Painter and see what's going on over there. Bananas. They run away. Here we go. All right, cool. Now file. I'm gonna do new. Document resolution. I'll just bring it to a 2K texture. And retopology. I'm gonna do the arch low poly. I'm gonna bring that in. Okay. And mind you, I would explore, and I might do this later on, but I would explore doing some sculpting, because doing some sculpting on an item like this would be probably super fun, super easy. You can sculpt your own like bricks and stuff and bring that in and do the high poly to low poly as well. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to mode, big mesh maps. And now this part is really important if you want this to be super successful. For example, the output size, I usually like to do the 2048 dilation width, bring that up so your lamp is nice and hot. I'm going to go here to the high poly parameters. Right here, iPoly definition meshes. I'm going to go ahead and click on this little document guy here. Do Arch AP HP, which is the high poly mesh. All right, cool. And now this part is really important. Um, so, for example, as you can see, there is a bit of a cage, and this cage is indicating the projection of like from one item to the other, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the frontal distance up, and as you can see, that cage gets a little bit thicker, right? And that's ensuring that um all of those bits are being covered all around. If you were to see something like this, this is no bueno. This is no good because your image is being cut from that. So we're going to go ahead and, just kind of nudge, nudge there. Um, and now the rear distance, I'm going to just bring that up to. Alrighty. And okay, let's take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and click on bake. And let's see what that does to our mesh here. Hopefully something nice. All right. A little skewing here, but that's just fine. But as you can see, now you have that high poly information on your low poly texture, which this is kind of bothering me. Let's go back to, let's see if I can fix that. Maybe it's just too far. Okay. Let's try that again. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. It's being a little skewed on that area. And just fine. But you guys get the idea. Now you can do lots of cool stuff with this high poly detail to the low poly. For example, let's find like a funky town, like stone material here. Do, do, do. Rough damage, concrete wall. Let's see. Ah, don't freeze. Probably. So yeah, you could do lots of stuff with that. Tiling, stuff like that. And also another thing I usually like to do, um, because you don't really see like much of that brick detail. I mean, there wasn't really much defined in that base mesh. However, um, you get the idea. Once you start to kind of do some sculpting and doing baking your light high poly to low poly, you could start like using these guys where I'm going to go ahead and do a fill layer. I'm going to add a base color, which is something a little darker than what I had as far as that brown. And you can start working with filters. So for example, instead of using these guys, which is also a valuable tool to have. So like, let's say, for example, I bring this and I start, creating details like that, which all of this is not ideal, to be honest. You can also go ahead and do filter, and you could play around with the baked lighting here, which is super duper nice. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and do baked lighting, and I can either bring that down just a smidge. So you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to just turn off uh, normals here so that we can see truly what the baked lighting is doing. Um, and what we can do is we can turn the direction of the sky in this the sun's intensity. Um, you can change the sun color and the sky color. I don't know if you see that, but it starts to get a little more intense. Um, vertical angle. As you can see, now you're getting some like really cool details in there. Let's see. Do, do, do. The ground color you can change as well. As you can see, instead of that dark, we could change it to like this terracotta color. Yeah, this software is really nice to have. Let's say if I wanted the details to be blue, like as you can see now I have like this really cool blue detail. You could do really nice stylized looks this way. All right, so let's see what this texture looks like. Actually, no, let's beef it up a little more. For example, I'm going to go ahead and add another fill layer. And let's say I kind of want like this mossiness going on. Um, well, we could do one of two things. I can absolutely just get moss from here, or I can just have it, kind of like more cartoony stylized. I'm going to go ahead and choose like a moss type color, which is something on the along the lines of like more of a yellowy olive, make it more like aged. Then I could go to our smart masks and we could try to find one of these moss from top. And there you have it. I mean, I wouldn't go full detail on that like this. However, you can absolutely go ahead and change the grunginess. You can change the levels. Now we're getting somewhere. I would suggest if you do have Substance Painter and you hadn't played around with these settings, definitely do so, because this is super fun. Sometimes what I like to do as well is change the layer type. So like multiply or screen. And now you could get like a different look. And now it looks kind of like really old. Like if I were to find this archway in the middle of the forest and then get teleported after I walk through to another dimension, that's very specific, but um you get what I'm saying. Okay, so yeah, like this is basically it. So what do you guys think? Sound off in the chat, guys. Is this helpful or what? Let me know. You can do so much with Retopology. Let me know.
Yes. It's
Awesome.
exciting. I'm so ready for tomorrow. Like, yes, I'm gonna
You can
fix my
make
errors.
right, you can make any shape into your own. You could totally take anything from AI and like learn from it. Learn from the topology, learn from rebuilding the topology and um don't be afraid to challenge yourself. That is like super important. The more you challenge yourself, the more you make mistakes, the more you learn, you know? And yeah, like definitely learn good topology. Like look it up. Look at how other 3D artists go about bringing that topology together because that is super important, especially learning from the masters. Making textures from scratch is super fun, especially baking high poly to low poly, super fun. Sculpting in your details, like really getting into the groove there. I highly recommend. Yeah, like all of it. Like once you start like understanding how it works, sky's the limit. Like you could literally make everything, So that's super duper important to practice. Anyways, I did drop the survey in the chat. So if you guys could please possibly, let me know how I did. Be super duper honest because that definitely helps with future planning. And yeah, give me a thumbs up after you've done so. Thank you so much for being here, attending this workshop with me. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys do next. I can't wait to see what you guys make. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye bye now.